going on, fam? It's your boy Pastor G, Pastor Gary Morris here at Berean Christian Fellowship Church. Pray all is going well. I know we've got some weather, some crazy things that's going on in the world right now. But keep those who are going through storms, not just in the southern part of our country, New Orleans and Mississippi, Alabama, those kind of areas. But let's just pray for our country as a whole. We got a lot of stuff going on. A lot of this stuff is spiritual, right? So let's just make sure we are on our prayer life. Got another quick word for you today. Another quick 15 minutes of faith segment. Just a short word to keep you encouraged throughout the week, and just something for you to think about. A close friend of mine who I consider a sister just had a little girl. Janae, Raya, beautiful name, beautiful little girl. But I remember one time when my nephew was here, right, her son, and she had to go to a wedding, and the whole time he's having a good time, but as the hours went by, he kept saying, I was like, hey, you want to take a nap? He was like, no, I don't want to go to sleep because my parentals are coming to get me. Parentals, his mom, a single mom, and basically mom and her sister takes care of him. So if he's not with mom, he's with auntie. He's not with auntie, he's with mom. So he calls them the parentals. So no matter what I tried to get my nephew to do, he already said it. My mom told me she wasn't going to be long. She was going to go to this party. I was going to hang out with my uncle, but she was coming back to get me. They had a communication understanding, right? So no matter how many hours went by, and I was like, hey, you want to chill out? He's like, no, I'm going to stay up because why? My parentals are coming to get me. He had that fixed in his head. I thought it was the funniest thing. My parentals are coming to get me. He had an expectation on his mom to do what you said that you were going to do, right? And they had a confidence in one another. He knew what to expect from her, and so on. It's sometimes when she tells me what he's doing, she says something to him, and because of how she says it, she has an expectation of him. How do you view your parents, relationship with your parents? Some of them are scorned. Some of our relationship with our parents are kind of burned. Some of us didn't have a good upbringing. Some of them were fatherless. Some of them were motherless, right? When we look at like John chapter 2, very familiar story, right? John chapter 2. If you go read John chapter 2, and I love how John poetically kind of lines out who Jesus is, his authority, his power, all those kind of things. But in John 2, John picks the disciples, right? He just finished telling, Nathaniel, hey, I saw you before you saw under the tree, and blah, 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 blah. So he's hanging with his disciples, his mom, and a couple siblings, right? So they're on a road trip, and they get invited to a wedding. Now, this wedding, it's not necessarily with the wealthiest families, supposedly, it's just a wedding, some family friends, and they invite the whole squad to the wedding. Well, hospitality is something real big. That's why they were invited, right? In Jewish culture, being hospitable, being caring to a neighbor, someone close to you, someone, a visitor, a stranger, be hospitable. So when the wedding is going on, they're putting on this feast, the unthinkable happens. Because sometimes weddings in Jewish culture can last almost a week. So throughout the wedding, everything is going on, they run out of wine. Y'all know the story. They run out of wine. Now, here is where the interaction between mother and son take place. They say, hey, we had a wine. Mary gets earshot of it. What does she do? She knows who her son is. She knows she's walking with the Son of God, the Christ. So she says, hey, they're out of wine. Now, I'm sure he's already aware of it. He overheard some of the same conversations. But she points and looks at him and says, hey, they're out of wine. And he responds to her, what you want me to do? It's not my time yet. But something in that statement that he made let her know my son is going to honor me. Because I didn't tell him to do something. The way she said the question to him was like, hey, they're out of wine, is I need you to do something. And he was like, Ma, me? My time hasn't come yet. What do you want me to do? But based on how he said it, she goes, hey, whatever my son says to do, do it. So since he was asked to do this thing by his mother, even though he knew what was to be expected of him in ministry, stuff like that, his statement to her wasn't necessarily one of disrespect. It was like, now, Mom, you know what I'm here for, right? This is not my time. But in the way he said it, he was like, but for you, you're my mom, I'll honor you. And so they bring him pots. Now, understand, the pots are for washing hands and utensils and stuff, but they're empty at this point in time. So they bring him these pots. Now, these pots hold up like 20, 30 gallons of water. He tells them, fill the pots to the rim, to the brim. So he ain't got to deal with this again. Not just, I'll fill the pots, but he said, fill the pots to the brim. Because if this is going to be a long-term, couple-day wedding, fill the pots to the brim. Because I'm not going to do this again. Right? So he tells them to bring the pots. They bring him the pots. And then he blesses the pots, and he says, now take some to the master of the ceremony. So the master, the host, who's handling all of this, says usually when people are having a wedding, he's talking to the bride, the groom, the bride's groom, and he says, usually at a party, they wait till everybody get drunk off the bootleg stuff, and then they bring out the good stuff. He says, but I'm sorry, you let everybody get drunk off the good stuff, and then you kind of have. But he said, you save the good stuff until now. As a son to a mother or father, he didn't just step up and answer the request. He gave it. He did his best, right? He had an expectation, kind of like my nephew. Even the response, even the expectation he had from his mother, the mother had an expectation on the son. One of the things that God holds dear is the relationship between parents and children. And in our society, that relationship can be strained in so many different factors. An absent father, abuse, all kind of things. But at the end of the day, even a commitment or charge from God is to honor your father and mother. But on the flip side, even the New Testament tells us, even a lot of it's written by the apostles saying, hey, but also you parents, don't anger your kids. Don't treat your kids a certain kind of way. There's responsibility on the parent. We have to get back to developing solid, cohesive, trust-based relationships with our parents, with our parentals, right? Have an expectation on what we can expect from them and they can expect from us. A lot of the things I think that are wrong in society and culture, the Bible mentions, a lot of it has to do with that parental relationship. How were you raised? What did you put into your children? What are you instilling in them? What kind of attitudes, behaviors, character, those kind of things are you putting into your children? At the end of the day, if you honor God with what you put into your children, or as a child that you give back to your parents, all God can do is honor, even if it's not responsible. And realize this. I do understand. Sometimes no matter how much you raise a child, I was in one of those homes. I was raised with siblings, with the same parents. They interact with us mostly the same way. Of course, the older one had different expectations, the younger one. But all of our personalities are totally different. We chose different paths in life, how to do things, right? You can't get past that. But the standard of what God expects from a child to a parent and a parent to a child, we need to get back to that. Parenting is not an obligation. Kids did not ask to be here. And us as the roles that I play, at one point I need to be a husband. At one point I need to be a son. At another point I need to be a father. I need to be an uncle. I need to be a brother. All those roles, I need to play each part to the godly standard, regardless of what the other person is doing. I would implore you and motivate you. We can't respond. Christ didn't respond, and we take a note from him with just turning his back on his mother or not adhering to what his mother's charge was. He had a communication with her where they had an understanding, but he was still obedient to his mother. Even though his heavenly father had tasks and things for him to do, he's still in his flesh saying, I need to do what is committed to me as man and honor my mother. We have to think about those kind of things when we deal with our parents or act as parents. I've got little boys and a little girl. Lord help me, I've got a little girl. But I have to be the best father I can be. Not their friend, their father. Some of us come up short because we try so hard to be our children's friends that we miss the parenting part. And I crack a joke. The reason why a lot of these girls aren't acting like ladies is because they go into the clubs with their mama. It's just that gap there. There is a good foundation for having a good relationship with your child where they can trust you, and you have a friendly relationship, but you guys are not friends, you're parents. My nephew understood whatever his mom said, regardless to what it was or she asked him to do, he was expecting her to come through with it. And that blind kind of subjection. I know, Uncle, you're trying to do the best for me, but my mama said she was coming to get me. And he stood on that. And when she called, I was like, oh, you know he ain't going to sleep because you told him before you left you were coming to get him. And she was like, oh, I said it. Yep, that means I got to come back. Because she could easily say, hey, it's getting late. The wedding ran over. We're just going to go back to the hotel and get him in the morning. But she knew she had to come get him that night. Why? Because she remembered, yep, I did say that. If I'd have said, hey, I'll see you tomorrow, he might have been cool with that. But when I told him I was coming back, he has an expectation that I have to commit to. Christ was the same way with his mother, and I would tell you to motivate you, be the same way. As a parent, there's nothing that a child should come to you and their mind should not have an expectation that you're going to fulfill it. You're going to stick to it. But also as a child, you should be able to, when a parent comes to you, be obedient to the point where it's not contradicting to the Word of God and it's not contradicting to what God expects for you to do. And in both situations, especially we look at the one with Christ, with my nephew, everything was done in honor and in respect. Mama, you know it's not my time yet, but you know what I need to do. So we need to make sure we get back to that old foundational trust between mother and son and father and mother and things like that. And I think that would change a lot about what we deal with in life, how we have that relationship. Because I look at, my parents worked hard. They had a great work ethic, but that's what I got from them. I got some things from my parents that were great and some things that I would never, ever do. My dad was always on the grind. My mom was always on the grind. She put herself through school and made herself successful, and they always did things together. But at the flip side, I can say my parents weren't always the most supportive. I played in jazz band. I played sports, and they weren't always there. They worked so hard that the time I needed them, I felt like they weren't there. We have to be able to find a balance. So look at yourself today. If you're a parent, if you got a small child, if you're an older parent, try to fix that foundational, that base with your children. Try to grow on that. I have a lot of repairing to do with my own son. I have a son from a previous marriage, and I have to just always remind myself of just not always trying to be his friend, but just be a good dad, right? And I'm not going to get it perfect, but I have to make that effort based on what the Lord expects me to do to make sure I'm doing it right, and never set an expectation that I can't keep. God is the same way to us with all that I'm saying. God has always kept his word and promises to keep his word. But at the same time, us as children, we need to meet God in that place and make sure that we're doing what he asks us to do. So that's my 15 Minutes of Faith segment today. Congratulations today at the birth of my new niece. I can't wait to meet her in person. Hopefully this COVID and this Delta variant doesn't keep it for too long. But just hearing about her birth made me think about that today and think about my nephew and just that how important it is for us to make sure we have that good foundation. All right, it's your boy Pastor G, another 15 Minutes of Faith segment. I'll see you all next week. Hit us up for our wonderful t-shirts at GraceGaryOnline.com. That's GraceGaryOnline.com, or hit me up at Pastor Gary at ScaryMorris.org or BereanChristianFellowship.org. Have a blessed week. Y'all stay safe through this rain. Keep each other's prayed up and encouraged up. I'll talk to you later. Pastor G, your boy, and I'm out. Take care.